One of the world's greatest racers and an undisputed titan of the sport, Sir Stirling Moss, has died, aged 90. Moss passed away on Sunday, April 12, following a long illness, one that dated back to December in 2016, when he spent 134 days in a Singapore hospital battling a chest infection. It was one lap too many. He just closed his eyes, said his wife, Lady SUSIE Moss. Moss, who set the standard for many generations to follow, raced during the sport's most dangerous era, famously as teammate to five-time F1 world champion Juan Manuel Fangio at Mercedes. From 66 starts, Moss earned 16 Grand Prix wins, the most of anyone not to win the world title, along with 16 pole positions and 19 fastest laps. He famously became the first Brit to win his home race at Aintree 1955, ahead of Fangio, while 3 years later he stood up for compatriot Mike Hawthorn, who faced a penalty in Portugal, effectively costing Moss the crown, despite 4 wins to Hawthorn's 1. Moss, however, was incredibly versatile, having won the Mille Miglia, Targa Florio, and World Sports Car Championship. His straight arm behind the wheel, unmistakable. F1 may be off track indefinitely, but the sport hasn't slowed down, instead turning the minds of the world's best and brightest engineers to the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Project Pitlane has linked 7 of the 10 F1 teams, those located in the United Kingdom, repurposing their facilities to produce breathing aids for the nation's hospitals. F1 attracts the brightest talents from around the world, which it then sets to work on engineering challenges, including making components smaller, lighter, and more efficient, like the sport's state-of-the-art 1.6-liter turbo V6 engines with multiple energy recovery systems that boast a staggering thermal efficiency, the energy recovered from a liter of fuel, of 50% compared to the 30% from road cars. And top F1 engine manufacturer Mercedes has turned its entire Brixworth operation to the task of building 10,000 breathing apparatus, designed in-house with the blueprints made open source. The UCL Ventura breathing aid was developed by Mercedes in fewer than 100 hours and is a continuous positive airway pressure or CPAP device that helps COVID-19 patients breathe more easily. Mercedes' Brixworth facility can produce 1,000 of these bespoke CPAP devices per day, using 40 machines normally reserved for F1 piston and turbocharger production. Formula One continues to work together for the greater good of the sport, as talks continue on how to safeguard the grid. And while F1's new era regulations, including the introduction of futuristic new cars, have been delayed until 2022, its new cost cap hasn't, forcing the teams to work within the $175 million budget. But that's only set to affect the top teams, with the rest of the grid calling for a reduction. Some looking for it to be slashed to $100 million, less than a third of what Red Bull spent in 2019. But Ferrari, which spent $435 million last year, says it's not a realistic goal for a manufacturer team that has to design and develop all parts in-house, with its team boss Mattia Binotto suggesting the cost cap be tailored to each team on the grid. We should not forget that we've got different situations, and it's important that we find a common ground somehow that is fitting to the different situations, he said. Staying with Ferrari, and FIA President Jean Todt has said he would love to release more details on the governing body's investigation into the Red Team's engine, but can't with the Scuderia opposed to it. The FIA investigated Ferrari last year with suspicions on the legality of its 2019 power unit, with rival teams claiming that it was sidestepping the fuel flow sensor restrictions, but in the end had to opt for a private settlement with no evidence to prove its case. The The solution angered 7 of the 10 teams that jointly wrote to the FIA demanding clarification through the courts if needed. Todd then replied to that letter, explaining the FIA's position, but can't do more without Ferrari's blessing. I received a letter in answer to my letter where they confirmed they understand the position of the FIA, but it didn't mean they were happy, and they would love Ferrari to allow the visibility of the case, which I would love too, but we can't, he said. Mercedes may have won a record 6 straight title doubles, but it's still got tricks up its sleeve. With chief designer John Owen stating the innovative dual-axis steering system, or DAS, on its 2020 W11 car was recycled tech from a past failed project.
The DAS system was born out of the ashes of something else, something that we tried, something we'd actually, I think, raced on the car a couple of years ago. That sort of worked, but didn't really deliver all the promise that we had in it.
Mercedes' innovative system allows the driver to control the car's toe, or tracking as it's known in road cars, for optimal rotation of the car's front tires around the vertical axis. And while it's since been banned by F1's governing body, the FIA, from 2021, Owen says there's more where that came from.
That was sort of put to one side as something we tried and didn't perhaps live up to our expectations. And then there are many other things like that that are out there within the team, within people's minds, projects that people remember.
The Russian Grand Prix is now well established at Sochi Autodrome, with the 2020 race currently scheduled for September 27, its 7th edition. But it could be its last, with plans to redevelop Sochi reportedly forcing the race to relocate, with the prime candidate St. Petersburg's Agora Drive circuit, a new permanent facility that has signed hosting deals with Germany's DTM and W Series. And Russian racer Daniil Kvyat has thrown his support behind the switch, with the AlphaTauri driver stating it will bring more interest. If it happens, it's going to be mega, he said. I think obviously Sochi's great still, but if you go to St. Petersburg, I always said that we will be closer to Europe and more people from Scandinavian countries will be able to join. Sochi's track, a legacy project from the 2014 Winter Olympic Games, will reportedly be slashed to just over 2 kilometers following construction of a new concert hall, making it too short for F1. Though Formula E may still be able to visit the redeveloped precinct. The Dutch Grand Prix has been postponed due to the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, but the organizers say it will not return as a closed-door event, with a race without fans there an unthinkable scenario. F1 was set to return to Zandvoort this year for the first time since 1985, on the back of Max Verstappen's frenzied fan base, the Orange Army, that has followed him to other European races in their tens of thousands. But while F1 wants to get its 2020 season underway as soon as possible, with its managing director of motorsports Ross Brawn stating 19 races is possible with a July start, and October the cutoff point for 8, the FIA's absolute minimum for a world championship. Holding closed-door events without any fans may be the only option at first. And while Zandvoort would consider it, the track's sporting director Jan Lammers says it's just not possible. We can only hope that we'll get a green light soon and that we'll quickly have a Grand Prix again, because that would mean that the virus is a little bit under control, and that's the most important thing in all of this, he said. The design of Racing Point's RP20 remains a heated talking point behind the scenes, with the Silverstone squad's new car certain to be competitive whenever the season begins, but it may be speeding into trouble, with its rivals ready to protest once it's raced, with the RP20 looking a carbon copy of last year's dual title-winning Mercedes W10.
Racing Point is a Mercedes clone, although they've got a lot of documentation to back up how they created that in a legal way within the regulations.
Very encouraging.
But while Red Bull has voiced its concerns, Renault is the latest to come forward, with team principal Cyril Abiteboul stating he's astonished Racing Point was so proud of copying. With the French squad keen to determine whether it was an inside job before its next course of action. Based on public information, is it possible to do such an accurate and efficient job? Abiteboul asked. I won't go any further at this stage, but it is still something we're wondering about. Thanks for watching. To stay up to speed on all things Formula One, make sure you hit the subscribe button.